current events, some sports updates and news, MJ documentary as always, and then we'll rattle it around on other sports topics. Johnny, starting off with you. Please leave the mask on top of your head.
Also, I should do the intro. That also at some point we will have an email address that people can email us. We don't have it yet, but so it'll be easier for us to take your ideas, thoughts, and then we can either, maybe start off with 5 minutes to kind of reading the mail, see what's going on.
Great call, Johnny.
We're a show of the people.
Johnny, you're shooting 1 for 1.
Yeah. So just with the Corona thing, I think it's weird. I traveled again. I took a truck to Phoenix. Talk to people. I think things are going to get back to normal. I think it's going to kind of snowball. Like people are going to go out. They're not going to be as worried. And I think it's going to get back to normal a little faster than possible. But on the Corona thing, so I had a project I did with my daughter. She's 4. And if you go to Amazon, not that we're plugging Amazon, but they have like 300.
Bezos.
They have like 300 packs of stickers. This is just one of the stickers that was in there.
Of course.
And so me and her got a poster board, and then we just took turns picking, and then we stuck them on the poster board, and we made a giant weird collage of all these really weird random stickers. Some of them weren't very kid-friendly, I realized, as I was looking through there, because I hadn't looked at all of them. But, yeah, if you're sitting at home with your kids, you have a couple kids, kind of like the drafts we've been doing. Me and her did a little
nice
sticker draft. Which one did you like? Where do you want to put it? And it turned out, I'll show these guys later, but it turned out really good, and she had fun, and we're going to hang it up in her room. So it's just something to do while you're still on lockdown until the 18th, I think, is the big day in San Antonio.
That's when phase 2 could potentially be introduced. Sean, I see that you're 3 buttons down already, man.
3 buttons
Where's
down.
Your gold? Hey, where's your gold chain?
With the new haircut today, just styling on them hoes.
Hey, Barbara, can you keep that high and tight, please?
Man, I love y'all. Y'all like my best fans right here. I'm my favorite guys.
Fans only.
It's been a good week, man. I think kind of like what y'all were saying, everything's starting to opening up, and a little bit of going back to normal with things. Right, had a small group of people over for the UFC fight on Saturday. That was awesome company. It was just good to have everybody back under the same roof again, having a good time, enjoying ourselves. Got a haircut just yesterday. Put a little Lee Greenwood on, went downtown and saw the Thunderbirds fly over San Antonio in appreciation for those serving on the front lines fighting COVID-19. So that was really cool, man. My daughter, me, my daughter, and girlfriend enjoyed that. It's pretty cool.
Shout out, Maddie.
Awesome, real father-daughter. Shout outs early. I like it.
Yeah, man.
JB.
Well, I mean, everything's awful for the most part, but
2 positives, 1 negative. We're a balanced view here.
Yeah, man, just trying to slowly get back into that whole basketball thing.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
The league's starting back up on the.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
The league we're in is starting up. The local one.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
nice.
I think it's like the 16th.
Nice. I watched a new watched a new a relatively new film on Netflix called The Platform. That was
solid.
It's in Spanish, so I mean, if you don't dig
subtitles,
if you're not, I mean, if you have a problem with subtitles, then this, I don't know, you're not. Exactly. But no, really, really good, and offers some social commentary, I think, in the meantime. But yeah, The Platform.
All right.
And man, just trying to make it work. In the meantime, move back into my regular summer place, I guess, here in San Antonio in the Med Center. So just trying to navigate things still.
Yeah, awesome. Mine is going to be for all of you big basketball fans. A lot of us, actually a couple of us on here, are helping be panelists on a basketball seminar where it's an international basketball. We've already had 15 different basketball federations speak. So if you're a big basketball fan, you are interested in going on that, you have time. It's all throughout the day. You can go on to basketballembassy.com and check it out. And a couple of us, like I said, you might actually see some familiar faces on there. And it's some really interesting stuff. I really recommend it. So that's my current thing. That's what's keeping me busy these days. So
I think we missed it last week, but the 5th person in our escape pod, Alex is gonna start having his own podcast. I'm partnered up with it to a degree. It's gonna be called Off the Dome with Alex and John, and we're gonna do like a series of just. He does a lot of in-depth research on things, and he's starting with basketball, the history of basketball.
Well, that's good.
The first 13 rules, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I just want to
Exciting
shout out to
Exciting
Alex. and
times.
then,
Be ready for updates on that.
Yeah,
Yep,
we'll link it
Alex.
at some point.
All right, so we're gonna start this off with JB. JB is gonna give us a little bit of COVID-19 update real quick.
Well, what can I say that hasn't already been said by the fake news media, right? No, I'm kidding.
Well,
It's
the news would be
yeah,
good.
yeah. The
I don't
news.
think they've done a whole lot of that.
The news, yeah, that would be. Apparently, COVID deaths in the U.S. have exceeded 85,000. I don't know. It's kind of relevant
Yeah,
because
I would think so.
yeah, in comparison to the rest of the world, anyways. And there's been there's a lot of people that are struggling and that have been struggling for the last 6-7 weeks or whatever, and it just doesn't seem to be a priority to get people any sort of relief. So like not people that are not working and just hanging out expecting I don't know. It's a strange thing. It's a strange time because if you watch any sort of like media on TV or if you listen to any sort of stuff coming out of DC, there's talk of like preventing handouts. And it's like, man, so many things have been shut down. And it's like, I think only here, this is the only place in the world, I think, where people's tax dollars coming back to them is perceived as a handout.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's tough. And there hasn't really been talk of any, I think the House Democrats presented a $3 trillion thing that I think it sounds nice and it's cool to post online, but I think they present things like that when they know there's no chance of it passing because the majority, the majority is still in the Senate and there's not. So yeah, if you've received your stimulus check, awesome. If you haven't, I'm sorry. And if you're expecting anything more from the federal government after that, I don't know if that's very optimistic. But yeah, man, it's still kind of we're opening up almost at the same rate as a lot of other countries that were ahead of us, I guess, as far as dealing with the heavy effects. And then yeah, man, we've got the. Hello. That's Johnny, everybody.
Did you, Justin? Did you see yesterday? They talked about Fauci and Trump. They kind of drew a line in the sand there when it came to like reopening of schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely too early to call for sure. Just kind of, I'm definitely keeping a close ear out just because being a teacher myself and a parent. I know that's how most people are affected by this. But I think for a lot of people that think that or just assume that schools are going to open up again in August, just hold that thought because it might not be as easy as that. And if it does open up, if a second wave does come, what are you going to do come Thanksgiving, Christmas break time? That's something to just kind of put out. It's still way too early to tell, but it's something to kind of just put on the horizon and think about.
Yeah. And kids come from that. I mean, that's the most important one, in my opinion, for a few reasons, because, when it comes to childcare and how working people like manage what their underage kid, what their young kids are doing when they're not in school, that's a huge issue. And then also it's just like, everyone comes from different home situations. So there's some people that have grandparents and older at-risk people at home. There's some people that come from healthy households. And so it's like that could, to me, that is the litmus test for when things are normal again. Is
not only
do you allow schools to continue?
Not only the kids, but I mean for the teachers themselves. Like how many? Well, maybe you're not going. Maybe the kids aren't going back to somebody that is part of that vulnerable population. Like, what if I'm taking care of? What if my grandmother?
Right.
Yeah. Am I returning to work? Are you going to tell me I have to return to work? Maybe, so it's just something to consider.
Well, and that's to me, man, we've talked about this off air quite a few times, but it's like what, and I don't know. I would say I don't want to get too deep here, but I kind of do. It's like, what is the purpose of the state if not to take care of the people it serves, to take care of the people that pay taxes and the people that it represents? What is the purpose of the state? And I don't think too many people, in America, not too many people want to ask that, but it's like in times of need and in times where, it's not pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's like, hey, I can't work because it's a fucking pandemic.
Yeah.
So which way are you guys leaning as far as the schools opening? Are you hoping that schools open in the fall?
God damn it, Johnny.
Johnny, I'm not going back to work tomorrow. So I don't know who's going to teach your kid, but I'll just tell you right now.
Because I think the interesting, like if that's y'all's viewpoint, I'm not sure that y'all, but like the thing that makes me nervous is school is a way that a lot of these kids that are in poorer areas get their 3 meals a day. You know, like certain things. Like I don't know how
Bigger-
that's
yeah,
being
bigger problem in itself.
right. So
Yeah.
like some of that, like that's where I think this issue becomes really complicated. That like how are these kids being fed and otherwise like that. Like I think it's an interesting conversation. So, what would your guys' general thoughts be on if you could talk to the director of education? What would be your
Well-
general like? What were y'all like? What are y'all leaning on?
I'm torn on this because I'm not a big fan of public school system. Being a teacher for 7 years, we're like ranked 40th in the world after we started the National Education Agency. We went from first under Carter, who started it, all the way down to something like 40th. I was in the school system. We were teaching the test. We weren't teaching kids to be like truly independent thinkers and value education. It was more like, hey, remember this, regurgitate, pass the test. Oh, we're getting better at it. Okay. Or we're not doing good. Here comes a new test. So it goes from STAR to, I don't even know what the current one is. What is the current
It's
one?
from TOS to TAX to STAR.
Exactly. And it'll change in 3 or 4 years for whatever reason. I'm torn when I say, yeah, go back to school. But I'm like, hey, I wasn't a big fan of it in the first place. But I think next year it would come down to this. And I got a lot of people that I know who are getting a paycheck, right? So what if next year it's like, hey, okay, we're not going to have school, but you're not getting your contract next year either. At what point then you go, I mean,
I think schooling would go online. They'd still get their they're still going to school technically.
How
It's
many
just-
less teachers would you need though?
That's
If
a
it's
fair-
online,
that's a fair
you could
question.
cut
That is a fair
cut
question.
that faculty down big time, which is a little scary. But my bigger point before I pass it back to y'all is like, I mean, us compared to the rest of the world, what is our death per job loss rate compared to the actions we're taking to stop those things? We've passed like South Korea on how many tests we've given per 100,000, not the total, but the per 100,000. So I think we're
But yeah,
and what other countries have given out
you
$3
can-
trillion to their people? Has
Well,
anybody done that?
well, you can. Well, they don't have to because the system's already in place to take care of them. But
Part of it, I agree with that.
But yeah, but and we can now at a Trump press conference, you can at any of his pressers now you can see a banner that says most tests in the world. I wish there would be an opposition one on the other side that says most deaths in the world. Yeah, but they don't do that. But no, I mean that kind of shines. And I mean I have a link to it, I guess. But I was living in Sweden for like the last year or so, and it's just like they started out as being kind of an outlier, and people were really scared by their approach. And it's like the curves flattened there, and it's a different place from here in
What,
in
5 million people
about
in
a
Sweden?
10 million, but it's like they're different from us in 1,000 different ways. But it's like they've taken the, they don't publicly say that we were aiming for herd immunity, but it's kind of what they've done.
Yep.
And schools are able to resume normally.
They're back. They're going back.
Yeah. From what I know, I think they have high schools and stuff like that are going to resume as normal, and then like
With sporting
childcare.
events and stuff, like are they going back?
Well, I mean,
to-
they don't have high school sports, so but I
Ah,
mean,
yeah,
so high,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
It's club.
sporting events are still limited in the same capacity as they are here and everything. But yeah, schools are back to normal, and it's an interesting approach. And I mean, you guys can go and check out the details of Sweden's approach and see what you think about it. But yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. It's even experts seem to be kind of baffled.
differ.
Yeah,
There's definitely there's no
well, and every single person I know, it's really amazing. I have however many thousand Facebook acquaintances, and it's like every single person magically became an expert
that's right.
because they watched one YouTube video with someone that has a PhD. So
Yeah.
it's like now it's fair game. It's like now is it a hoax? I mean,
Everyone's got the YouTube PhD.
Yeah.
It's interesting off of that just I mean coaching collegiately we try and know that everything's copycat that so D2s in California have already canceled their fall sports season.
Mhm.
So we're
Wow.
I know I really I want science to prevail here, but I know optimistically I really want to coach basketball next year. That'd be really fun. And so seeing that the fall sports, I know that's California seemed to have been the leader in the field and everything, and things kind of trickled down. So it'll be interesting to see now that someone has already canceled the fall sport, how that'll go collegiately. I know people are already talking about fall classes being online. It'd be an interesting conversation for classes to be online, and then say, but even though we're not comfortable with you going to class, you can go to a game. That seems
no,
like
and
that's going to be a very unique conversation to be
the
had.
NCAA's come out and said, if classes aren't in session, then there are no sports. But it's like,
Right.
well, what
What's your
what does in
moneymaker?
session mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of, I mean, that brings us to the next thing. Sean mentioned it in our introduction. Like the UFC was the first to come back and actually
let's talk about it.
No, they were the first to come in and televise an event. And obviously it's a bit, you guys are much more into it than I am, so I'll let you have it. But it's like, it was very strange, even as an innocent bystander, to see no fans in the crowd. Normally those things are jumping, they're sold out, they're big events, and it's just essential personnel and just the fighters. But it was the first major American sports network to have something going on.
I personally liked it a little bit more. I loved hearing I think people underestimate like how brutal that is. Hearing the punches connect, watching the brutality of the final fight. Like I'm a big fan of it. Like they were talking about how a couple of the fighters was listening to Daniel Cormier, who is an ex-legend. Like they could hear the announcers talk, and he was talking about how he would defend a leg kick. And after that round, like he started to adjust, and the guy won the fight. And so it's just seeing the different adjustments, getting to hear the corners. I thought it was super interesting. Obviously, we were, whether it be the Jordan documentary we'll talk about later or these fights, like I was so like it was everything I hoped for.
You soak it up.
It was great.
Yeah,
it was really good.
I don't want to politicize UFC anymore. Like it's a huge success for Dana White. It is an individual sport though, right?
Yeah.
In our hearts, we all want to see the NFL,
It's
the NBA
different,
come back, but this is absolutely different right here.
Yeah,
hats off to Dana White for pulling it off. It had everything that a fan would want, right? We had a 20-second knockout that a lot of people already forgot about.
Yeah.
Right. We had a 20-second heavyweight knockout. We had the controversy of the early stoppage of a title fight, right? And then the main fight, the main event, was amazing, right? And I think Gaethje put on a hell of a performance. He put himself in a position where he gets to choose his next fight. Does he want to fight for the title? Does he want to fight Khabib, or do you take the money fight with McGregor? It's I think it's easy for a lot of people to say, man, get that belt, get that title, but
fight for money. You ain't beating Khabib.
Yeah, can you? Yeah, I don't know, man. He put together a hell of a performance.
He's a wrestler too. One thing your hero, the shortest podcaster in history, the Toe Rogan, had he had an interview, and he said something really interesting. So Gaethje was trying to knock this guy's head off, like he was throwing haymakers, right?
Yeah.
And Rogan said during the fight that something he thought was interesting is that he could hear his coaches a lot clearer. And I think it was in the second round, he went from haymakers trying to kill him, realizing he couldn't knock this dude's unknockable. You can't knock him out. Like that dude is insanely tough. And then in the second round, he just started picking him apart. It was just pieces. I think they told him to go at about 85 to 90%. And Rogan said, he goes, I don't know if a crowd is in here with the adrenaline.
I heard the same thing.
Does he burn himself out
and try and
throwing?
Yeah. I'd heard the same thing. That was a huge difference in the fight. I think that's a great point. That like normally you chase that knockout.
Yeah.
There's a couple times where he had Ferguson's legs wobbly, and he was a sniper. He just took his shot when it was there. It was damn near the perfect fight for him.
It for sure it was. I think you go for the knockout, especially if you're Gaethje. You go for the knockout so you can be that pay-per-view guy, right?
Dude, was there one shot in that fight? Did anybody go for a shot?
Oh,
he
for
took.
sure.
He caught him clean.
No. One shot, like take it to the ground. I don't think there was ever like
Ferguson tried once, and that's Gaethje. Gaethje was an All-American wrestler. It's really interesting. The other thing, like there was so much going on. One guy with the title retired after winning.
Yeah.
Like it was a really interesting. It was just nice to have like humans are interesting and fighters are like some of the most interesting. They're just different breeds. Like I know JB's are going to have a transition for another great fighter, but man, it was fun to watch. And Ferguson, I know he lost. He got the hell beat him, but how fucking tough is that guy?
Unbelievable.
I don't know.
Broken eye socket and still fighting.
That's like a movie.
Broken eye socket.
If Ferguson's fight was a movie, you'd be like, that's
unrealistic.
This doesn't seem right. Like a guy doesn't get hit in the face that many times, but he just kept like
And with
it
a
was,
heavy-handed hitter, dude. Gaethje's a heavy-handed hitter,
Man,
man. It's not like
it was
he's
a hell of a fight.
Well, and that speaking of fights,
Yep.
there's supposed
Get JB out in
yeah,
transition, pitches the
yeah,
ball ahead.
throw it ahead, you know. But
Yank, yank.
Mike Tyson is back and is training, and
Iron Mike.
yeah,
Mike
and,
Tyson,
and
The
honestly,
Mike Tyson.
heavyweight hitter.
and honestly, again, not
Midget
the biggest,
enthusiast.
Knock your lights
not the
out.
biggest boxing fan in the world either. But when it comes to that, just for I don't know, just off of what you can see on a video, guy's 53 years old,
Man.
and I mean, watching
Murdering.
even watching
Murdering
stuff,
the bag.
yeah, watching stuff with him in the 80s and 90s, just videos. It's like, wow, this is special. Seeing him at 53 and he's gotten back in shape and everything, and it's just like to watch that. It's almost scary how fast and how well he moves for a 53-year-old. So I don't know.
He's a killer. He's a killer. He makes me feel bad
What's-
about my
who's he
workouts at
fighting?
the end of the day. I haven't.
We don't know yet.
I
Is it
didn't.
supposed to be a bare knuckle fight? That's what I've heard.
Man,
Might as well go old school.
whoever's fighting bare knuckle with Tyson, if that's somehow true,
I don't know. That's just what's been thrown out there. That's what I heard.
that's who needs to fight on said Dana White's island is Mike Tyson. That's what I.
He'll have
That's
his
some.
pet tiger. in the
That's some
corner
Lord of
with
the
him.
Flies shit right there. That Mike Tyson would own that island soon. But yeah, that's fun times. JB, we have one more current event. I know you wanted to talk to a little bit of
Yeah, this is like
Iranian Venezuelan.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, some of our viewers are like, "Oh, get off your soapbox, you bastard." But I mean, circling back a bit to what we're doing and what we're doing in the world and everything nowadays, you know, for the last 2 months, everything's centered around COVID-19 and what are we doing? So political opinions aside, if you don't know what economic sanctions are, then do your homework and figure that out. We don't have time for that. But if we're talking about economic sanctions right now, if you haven't noticed, Venezuela and Iran are not in the good graces of the United States government. A lot of times we respond with economic sanctions. So what that is, you know, is basically barring certain transactions between us and allies and those belligerents. And so the question I want to pose to viewers and to our panel here is that during a pandemic, are economic sanctions a moral thing? So again, whenever you impose sanctions on a country, so whether it be Cuba back when that was a thing, or Venezuela, Iran, etc., when you impose those sanctions, they affect people. They affect ordinary people. They affect people that aren't government leaders and stuff like that. They aren't military people. They're civilians. So everything from just being able to put gas in your car in Venezuela's case, because
Probably
they
the
have,
one thing they do have, except
well,
for
no,
the
they have
refinery.
oil, but they don't have the ability to refine. And so Iran is actually trying to ship refined gasoline to them, and that's seen as like a punishable offense. And then obviously Iran
weird.
has been punished a lot. And so it's like, I'm not trying to defend or take a political stance with the governments, but what I want to ask you guys,
What the morality?
yeah, and
of
what I kind of want to ask viewers is that during a pandemic, do you think that economic sanctions are a moral thing, and that even not during a pandemic, they undoubtedly contribute to deaths
Yeah.
of civilians and of innocent people? Are they moral during a pandemic?
Right.
That was it. Go ahead, Dustin. Go ahead.
I mean, I'll keep mine short because yours is going to be more broad in scope. I think you're handcuffing the poor, and the people that you're actually trying to hurt are not going to be greatly affected by this. So my moral dilemma is pretty easy, that you find ways and other means, because the people that you're trying to affect aren't. You're always taking out on the worst people in the worst situations. So I'll pass on a shot.
I'm probably gonna wild card with y'all on this one.
As
but
always.
I don't.
John Stockton, you're one here.
I don't. I don't think it's the responsibility of the United States to take care of Venezuela in any means. And there's a lot of people that'll bring up Venezuela that can't even point to it on a fucking map when it comes to socialism. And I disregard any sort of comments that come out of any of those people's mouths because they don't understand the economics of Venezuela. They don't understand that 50% of of their GDP is dependent upon of their oil production. And whenever you don't have a true mixed economy, when you're solely dependent upon oil, and the price of oil has gone down dramatically since 2012, people can't put two and two together. All they hear is, oh, Venezuela socialism, they're not doing well.
They're bad.
Exactly, and they don't understand anything past that. But I will say, during the time of pandemic, it's where an epidemic or pandemic, it's to me, it's just I'm not going to say it's fair game. Whatever happens, but it's not necessarily our responsibility to take care of others.
I'm with you on that one, and I am 100% think socialism's bad. So let's just make sure I'm clear on that one. But I would agree with Justin in this regard. If there was some body out there, not necessarily the UN, that went into Venezuela and was like, hey,
or a human body, like The Rock.
Yeah, The Rock could go in there. Go send The Rock in. Find out where
see if he can get it done first.
Find out where the real
Fast and Furious Venezuela.
What are the real deficiencies, right? Like, what are they really hurting? What do they really need? And those things automatically come off the sanction list. Like if they need that refined oil, right? Send.
Well, no, but
oil
that's I mean, that's how you squeeze them, though. I mean, they're not depriving countries that are perceived as enemies of weapons that they're not sending them. The purpose is to deprive the population of essential goods in order to prompt some sort of rebellion or an uprising and a regime change. So it's like a soft. It's
soft coup.
Yeah, if there is such a thing, it's like a soft coup, and it's just like that's my thing. Is it's like nobody on this podcast or on any like American podcast is going to come on and say, yeah, I really think the Islamic Republic really like represents humanity and like really is very progressive. No one's going to say that, and then like really no one's going to go on and just say, yeah, like Venezuela is just a beacon of democracy. They're awesome. No one's going to say that, but to impose sanctions whenever our own country's got 80,000 body bags over this shit, it's just it's not just off-putting, it's kind of reprehensible, like to say like, well, these countries the people aren't able to work in these places as they normally work, and they're already countries that are relatively poor, but here's some sanctions because we don't like your government.
I would let the sanctions go for a while. I wouldn't clamp down on them.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna, like you were saying, I don't think we should send them money. We can send them ventilators.
It's not a responsibility. Let me clarify what I was saying. What I'm saying is, like, let's just take oil for example, because we're talking about Venezuela. What I'm saying is this: when it comes to sanctions, I'm not going to lift sanctions and buy oil from Venezuela when there's people in West Texas that are losing their jobs here at home. That if I'm going to take care of somebody first, I'm going to take care of the people here at home, and then.
Sure, you don't. I mean, I'm saying you don't have to buy from them, but you also don't. You're not obligated to force the entire rest of the world and to force your allies to impose sanctions on them. Like, there's a difference to that. And like I said, without taking a political stance, which you guys are well know, you're well aware that I have them. Without even taking a political stance, just like maybe
JB has political stances.
Yeah, it's wild. I know.
News alert.
It's like maybe we shouldn't. Maybe people in Washington shouldn't, like, that shouldn't even be first, second, third, fourth, or fifth on their to-do list. That shouldn't be even it shouldn't even be in there. It shouldn't even be in the realm of possibilities right now, because we're a shit show right now, and they're talking about imposing sanctions that will kill innocent people.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit. I don't know. It's I would almost do kind of the opposite instead of a soft coup, kind of like my whole "make Mexico great again." Let's help them. But with Venezuela, instead of clamping down on them, maybe go in there and say, "Hey, Venezuelans, do you want to give capitalism a try? We're going to help you do these things. We will help you, and not in any coup way."
That doesn't sound like
Johnny,
it doesn't sound like something that you can do.
Sounds a lot like a coup.
That sounds exactly.
Yeah, that's
tell
exactly
them to do the opposite of what their government.
No. Just offer whatever assistance they want. We'll open up to you. We'll do a loan or something. But we're not coming in. We're not forcing your government out. Just
Johnny. Johnny,
instead of the stick.
Johnny, after we get off the air in a bit, go online and just scour the internet and look at how the average Venezuelan person treats Juan Guaido whenever they encounter him at an airport or in the street or
Is
anything.
that the new president there?
He's not.
Oh no,
the
no,
new
no.
president.
He's our preferred. He's
Ah,
our
I
government's
got you.
preferred
Got
president.
you.
He's the opposition. But
I think they
go
did that
go
the
see
wrong
how
way.
go see how he's treated, and then you'll get the gist of their opinion of capitalism.
Well,
A lot of pain.
this has been painful. But here's the thing about pain. It can be fixed. You guys go to Natural Heights. 210-592-1060. It's on 1880 Nacogdoches Road. CBD oil. You have stress, anxiety, you have some Venezuelan pains. You go get it taken care of, and they'll get you fixed up. Tell them the Escape Pod sent you.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe get some extra for the Escape Pod.
Dude,
I mean, there's so many different options there, but
And
go.
drop our
Hey,
name when you get it.
I mean, wait until after the podcast. I mean, sit back down, but I mean, after you're done, see if they're still open, and then go.
Hey, true story. My dad, who I would not have ever pegged as a CBD guy
Yeah.
of any sort, went to visit him last week, I guess, and he was like, "Yeah, my friend gave me this, and it's
Yeah,
CBD,
it's awesome.
CBD spray, and it's just like, he swears by it." It was his first night to try it, then the next day he's like, "Man,
Well, I mean,
Really,
CBD.
it's like I think that did the trick. It's really good.
CBD is
I slept
only
like
for
a baby."
people who like to sleep good or like don't want their joints to
Yeah.
be
Halftime.
painful.
God damn it, Johnny!
So
Halftime.
yeah, it's a great thing. Before we get started on our sports, I just wanted to do a quick preview for next week. That we're gonna have an extravaganza. Johnny brought this up. This is all Johnny's idea. We're gonna do a Bachelor rewatch. We're gonna watch The Bachelor.
I
We're
actually-
gonna
I like
we're
this
gonna
idea.
talk about this. We're gonna break it up. So ladies
Damn it!
that are watching,
Off
send
the-
us some of your faves, and then we'll discuss.
Girls, let me just say right now,
JB's talking to you, ladies.
I was absolutely opposed to this idea when it was first presented, and then I kind of warmed to it because I feel
When
like
they said
I
we're gonna
feel like there'll
draft
be
the
a lot of
girls.
input to it. Yeah, so you guys send us your thoughts. I'll take any insider information that I can get because I have absolutely.
Is it a rewatch if you've never
zero-
watched it before?
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
no,
saying.
It's
Yeah.
gonna
It's
be
yeah.
it's gonna that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Sean,
New to
button
us.
down Sean. Button down Sean is making points. Yeah, it's gonna
Sean
be
needs a
we're gonna
gold
watch
chain.
it. We're gonna watch it one time, and then we're gonna discuss it.
And none of us have ever seen it before.
No,
so there's
we
that.
I
haven't.
think I saw one a
We
long time ago.
Okay, one of us has.
Johnny, we're not
Long
talking
three
about
of
the
us haven't.
first ever Bachelor.
Okay.
It
We're
was like
talking
one
about
of the
this
first
year.
ones. Okay. I mean,
We're
yeah.
removing a Bachelor boycott from our lives, and we're gonna go ahead and give it a watch.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Really
So
does.
we will be early in the show on that. So make sure and tune in on that. A very similar, very easy switch. We're gonna go to the MJ documentaries. Two things that have been going for a long time. We were on episode 7 and 8.
I've seen up to 6, by the way. I watched up to 6.
Okay, awesome. 7 and 8 are my two favorites. You get where there's a lot of Rodman and a lot of Armstrong. Too much Armstrong, in my opinion.
A lot of Armstrong.
And
he's
so
the forgotten Bull, though, man. Yeah, he was pretty solid.
it's just I don't want to hear that much what Rodman thinks. I want to hear what Jordan's who's interesting. It's just like you don't need to overthink it. And 7 and 8 was a lot of Jordan, and it was, I was a big fan of both of them. That 2 hours went by like that. What were y'all's initial thoughts, JB? I'll start with you. What were your first?
Man, I guess it was okay.
Wow.
It's losing steam as it
And
goes.
Sean's
It's-
turn.
God damn it! It's losing steam as it goes. But what stuck with me, I suppose, was the last 2 minutes or so
yeah.
of episode 7. I say it's losing steam, but that 2 minutes
You
was
said it all right.
I did, but that was the strongest 2 minutes of the entire documentary because I guess MJ's facing questions about what
Yeah.
type of teammate he was and how hard he was with people, and it's like there's multiple instances of him fighting guys in practice, and it's just like anybody that's played on any serious team before knows that's part of the deal, but the extra stuff of just how he addressed people, how he talked to people. Whenever he goes in and he just says, well, for those that say I'm a tyrant or that I was a bad teammate or whatever, that's you because you never won anything. And then he says, that's the way I played
Yeah.
the game. And if you don't want to play that way, don't play that way. And then he's like kind of like just old school guy with power and money where he can just say, hey, break. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because he was getting emotional. And so it's like when you see the guy, the best player in the world, like best player that's ever touched a
Laced him
basketball
up.
floor. Yeah. Best player that's ever been on a floor. He gets emotional about that. And it's just like that. It puts it in perspective for young players. And then for people that were there to see it, it's just like, man, that's the type of personality, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
That's the level of competitiveness. And that's the level of drive and seriousness that it takes to get to that level. So
Yeah.
you don't have to co-sign for it, but there it is. Like
Yeah.
that's the model.
That kind of takes me back to the quote where they talk about there's a price to winning, there's a price to
leadership,
leadership.
yeah.
And the funny thing is maybe there are some teammates of Jordan that it wasn't for them, but you know what we're not doing? We're not sitting here talking about them because we don't give a shit.
No,
What they win.
If that's the price of winning, of me dealing with an asshole in practice, like, cool. Like,
Yeah.
all right, sign me up.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do, MJ? Because I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And so I think if that's the trade-off, then, if that means that I'm going to forever be talked about in some of the greatest basketball ever played on
Yeah.
one of the greatest teams and dynasties ever played, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not for everybody.
My two biggest takeaways from just like moments, I thought adding sound to his crying, the sobbing, like
Yeah.
I guess I just always thought it was joy. Whenever I rewatched, I've seen that championship and
Relief.
that image. It wasn't relief. It was agony. It was Father's Day.
Yeah, he's talking about
When he's laying on the
he's,
ball.
he's talking
he's
about 90.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
talking
okay.
about 96. Yeah.
96. He wins the championship on Father's Day. It's that picture that Kobe's copied. That like it's one of the pictures that I've always like.
It's kind of a weird moment.
It
It's kind of a
is.
weird moment for people.
You feel
to have,
uncomfortable.
I don't doubt for a second that it was authentic because there were
Right.
no other players in the room. But it was like it's kind of a weird moment to catch on camera, and it's a catch-22 because it's like, man, how lucky are we to for that to be recorded and to get to see it?
But how
But it-
private of a moment
It's a
should that
very
Father's
strange
Day?
human.
Yeah.
It's a very strange human emotion to be able
is.
to capture. Like that moment was really weird to have
Yeah.
people with cameras hovering over you. But yeah, I get that.
And off of you, what you were saying, that your last 2 minutes, I loved equally to that. I completely agree that was one of the best moments. Whenever he stops and goes, look, you can talk about whatever bullshit you want. I never asked a teammate to do anything that I wasn't willing to do, and that you saw me do.
Yeah,
And that little thing, that was like, he's right. Like that.
Well,
He always led with his actions. He
well,
was
and
always-
Scott Burrell had the best possible retort. Like he's such a nice guy, as is made clear in the documentary. But it's like he says, well, not everybody can do what you're doing, but what MJ said is true. And it's like out of any leader, that's the thing. Like I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not personally willing to go through and to do.
That was
And
a
I know
goosebumps moment.
I know basketball coaches everywhere, like for sure in this city and in every city in the world. It's like true basketball heads and basketball coaches. It's a teaching point because yes, it's a documentary, but it's like you're looking at a regular Bulls practice. It's not a hype thing. It's a regular Bulls practice. And the best player in the world is leading the sprints.
Yeah.
Not missing a line. and
Guarding the best player on the opposing team.
Yeah, and it's just like those are things those are teaching points, and it's
Yeah.
like it's not just a hype fest. It's like this is why this guy was what he was.
This will be my last thing, and then we'll open up a little more broadly since you haven't gotten to see 7-8 and like Johnny talk about it. Like
I got some.
I'll open this up and just
things.
give your guys opinions on this. This is kind of off the top of the dome here. He just comes off as one of the most real human beings. Like the flaws are just there. Like everyone after that, like Kobe does all the things MJ does, but it's so intentional. There's a method to it. He knows why he's doing it. LeBron, you can tell there's theater to why he's like, what's the last, like maybe Iverson fits in that it's just raw who he is, but like MJ's just there's no like theater. It's
Well, I think the guy that I was gonna bring up, I think Duncan's kind of like that. I think that he had the coach, and then he was the guy that kept everybody in line. He just had to, but he didn't do it with words. He didn't punch people. He was in a different way.
He wasn't throwing around a lot of bitches and hoes in the practice.
Steve
but
Kerr
I
talked about
get
this. It's
that.
really interesting. That's like to go off here, so I'm gonna let you go back to it. Like Steve Kerr joked about, like he talked about in this book of basketball, Bill Simmons. It's amazing. He does the opening, and he talks about with Tim Duncan I felt like I was winning it with him, even though I knew he was in charge. MJ, I thought I was winning a championship for him. Like that was the two different things. It was really
Well,
it
he
was
was making
super
you win a
It's like a
championship.
dictator and then like a true like a populist president that's just there,
Yeah,
like that.
but
That's
it
the
was very
difference.
interesting. It's a great comparison because he talked about how they're both dynamic leaders. Like they're both the DNA of their team. It's just two different ways of doing it.
And I think it was, one of the few. Those two are probably the best coach, best player, team get in line relationships. I don't know if I can think of another one. Maybe Riley and Magic. Bird, I don't even remember Bird's coaches, but I think Bird would be in that leadership level. You're LeBron. Everybody knows I'm not a LeBron fan, but I like when people were saying players don't want to play with him. I think it's that manufactured, the circus.
Yeah.
Now I think.
How about Curry and Steve Kerr?
Oh,
I feel like
no,
that's pretty.
that's
I
a really
think
good
Curry's
one.
incredible at that.
No, that's a good one. I think LeBron, though, out of all these guys, I think he might make the players on the court better than any of those guys. Maybe Bird's up there in Magic, but talk about a guy take guys and make them better, make their careers. I mean, set Kyrie up in his spot, and then just this is a small, like a local one. We were in the JCC, and Devin Brown was on my team, and
Shout out Devin Brown.
he doesn't. We actually maybe can get him on
What
here
up?
too.
Oh,
But
we have
so
to.
we're playing, and we have a guy on our team who was an Our Lady of the Lake ex-player, and he just was out there doing his own thing, right? And Devin Brown went
Shout out Our Lady of the Lake.
went nuts and started. He wasn't cussing at the guy. He just started cussing at the air about team ball and over dribbling. He never looked at the guy. That dude,
Never mind. Not a shout out to
it
Our
was
Lady of the Lake.
DQ. He literally changed his game, the way he played, became a
RIP
glue
Sean
guy.
Snee.
And we literally pretty much, I think we pretty much won because of that one leadership
Comment.
role
Yeah.
guy that did that one thing. And I know it's a very small example, whatever, and it's not nearly comparable, but to have a guy like that all the time, every day, keeping everybody in line and having you focused, whether it's like they said, scared of him or we're doing it
Well,
with
there-
him.
and
What
there's
about
a big
Isaiah
deal.
Thomas, Chuck Daly? I feel like
Oh,
that
that's
might be a
that's a
pretty
big one.
be up there too.
Well, and there's different. I mean, that's that ties into what we're talking about later on. It's just like there's people, whether it's politics, sports, or regular life or whatever, people get so caught up into thinking in polar, like in poles of thinking, like in extremes, and it's like not everybody can respond to a coach that's just on your ass all the time and that's in your face all the time. Some really, really good players would shut down, and it's like
Well, look how they treated Rodman.
right. And the same way with leadership out of Jordan or Kobe or Duncan or any of the other greats. It's like those aren't identical forms of leadership, and it's like Kobe for sure tried to emulate Jordan as best he could, but it's like not every situation will succeed with that type of leadership. And it's like, given what the Spurs have done, you'd be hard found to hear somebody say that Tim Duncan's form of leadership and that Pop's form of leadership isn't successful. Same thing with the Bulls. You've got 6 rings to prove that, hey, this dictator style of where I'm winning a championship for this guy.
Yeah.
Everybody fell in line and they won. And that's the most
And
dominant.
happy about it.
Yeah,
At the
yeah,
end of
yeah,
at the
yeah.
end of the day, Will
'Cause
Purdue's
winning-
happy about
yep.
it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and those guys have rings that no one can
MJ's
take
making
away.
their
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's relative. It's relative to the group you have, and it's relative to the people that are around you. So
Hey, side effect or side story to this, they
Right.
have like 10 minutes of the Space Jam stuff, like how MJ gets
yeah.
all of
Oh,
the best
dude.
players in LA,
Dewey's using it as a
That's-
scouting report.
using it as a scouting report. And like, man, if that was today, film that, sell it. I would
Yeah.
right now. I would pay. I would pay probably what a pay-per-view would be to watch hours of uncut open gym
3
of
hours.
those guys.
3 hours.
You look at the
30 bucks.
names in that.
And
The
because you get to see
players
guys,
playing.
you get to see how they play, and then also stuff they're working on and stuff they're trying to develop.
It-
It's like- that would be so cool.
It was
man.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was the players that were showing up to that. I think it's kind of funny. I'm a modern day apologist. Like how like
Recency bias.
MJ's that guy doesn't have like MJ's allowed to invite every player to come play with him. But if he mentions that he's scouting them, it's fine. If LeBron has all of
Oh,
his
no.
friends over and like
soft,
it's-
man.
Yeah,
He's
it's
soft.
like, man,
He's soft.
These
Why
guys
are
are-
you friends with those guys?
it's just
He's-
funny
he's
that
soft.
MJ and I've become even more of an MJ fan. Like I respected him, but I wasn't necessarily like he becomes more likable in these. But MJ's allowed to go golfing with opponents, and he's allowed to have them all over at his
Danny
Space Jam.
Ainge.
But he's a competitor. Like it's just funny how old school people can pick and choose when their style of basketball
Hey,
is
how
allowed
about
to be.
how about MJ's like manufactured storylines? Like, hey, how am I going to get myself
Oh,
pumped
yeah.
up for this
Awesome.
game? Right?
Who was the
Oh.
guy?
The guy that played for the Bullets, right?
Gosh, he's from Corpus Christi. He grew up like right next door
Yeah,
from my
yeah.
dad.
Dude, does MJ have
Um,
a comfort zone? Like, does
No,
that
it's
exist? in him?
competitive.
Yeah,
It's
I
all
don't-
the time.
He doesn't
That's,
at all, man.
Oh, what's
Maybe
that guy's
smoking a
name?
cigar.
Yeah,
No, and
Relaxing.
what else? They talked about
McRae, Rodney McRae, I think.
They,
What
no,
Bradley
no,
said.
they talked about. They also talked about George Carl walking by him.
Oh, yeah, at the
yeah,
restaurant,
yeah,
right?
man.
Yeah, just
You disrespecting
manufacturing,
me?
manufacturing all
That's
these
so
stories
good,
just to
man.
get himself amped up. Hey, I like the BJ Armstrong taking game 2 though. It kind of took me back. Like, I don't care who you are. Like, when you first start playing basketball and you're playing against like your dad or whatever, right? Like BJ Armstrong winning game 2, and everybody in the world knew, even BJ Armstrong, that hey, Jordan's gonna come back and just kick my ass.
Well, no,
It just felt like
Sean-
when you beat your dad the first time ever in
man.
one-on-one.
I'm
you
losing
just
the next one, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna
he's
take.
like,
I'm
hey,
gonna enjoy this.
run it back, and you just
Hey,
know that
well,
he's
no,
gonna
but
whoop your
we were
ass.
talking about that. It's like Armstrong. It's like, what else did he do? Like, he didn't overly taunt them. Like, you saw the game tape, you saw the video. He celebrated. He
He
didn't
didn't,
overly
he
taunt
didn't
them.
have to do shit.
All he did
Wasn't
was
that
all
bad.
he
Yeah,
all
it
he
was
did.
enough. It was enough for MJ.
All he did was have a good game.
Yeah.
And it's like,
That was
I feel
enough.
like him playing with MJ long enough, it almost brainwashed
he
him into
with? I
saying,
didn't see.
"Yeah, I
Who was he
showed
with?
off."
Who's that?
Hornets.
He's with
Yeah.
the Hornets.
Yeah,
Okay.
I, I like how the episode 8 ends with like there's a cliffhanger if the Pacers are gonna beat the Bulls.
Oh
like,
my
hey,
God,
everyone's
no.
watching this knows. We
Yeah.
know. Like, that's not the cliffhanger. Do something we don't know. Like, we
Hey,
know Reggie Miller
hey,
doesn't
the-
beat him.
the-
It was
the under 16s
LaBradford
might not
Smith.
know.
with
LaBradford
the-
Smith,
LaBra-
great call, great call.
LaBradford Smith with the Bullets.
But yeah, that was like, no, that's not the cliffhanger. We know that
we
this
read the
ends.
back of the book.
Yeah, that's right. We all know who wins.
There's literally a shoe called named after the 6 rings. Like we're
we
aware.
get it. Yeah.
We're aware that they won.
Yeah, but let's go on to we had talked about this a little bit off camera. This episode 7 introduces a young Shaquille O'Neal, and so we see them. They're actually the one team that Jordan had not played basketball for 18 months. So there's a clear asterisk, but they beat them. They beat them handily. They it's Penny. It's young Penny. It's Horace
Horace
Grant,
Grant,
who was on the Bulls the year
Derek
before.
Derek Anderson.
DA, and then
Scott,
obviously a young,
the
great
three-point shooter.
Shaquille
Yeah.
O'Neal. So it's a pretty damn good team. But we get to we talked off that, like, is the center the hardest position to stack rank on who's the greatest? Because I think
by
it's
far,
flavor of ice cream. It
By-
depends on
by
what you
far.
want.
It's not for me. My number 1 has been number 1 for a long time.
But your number one, what my point is, it's the most disputed. Like, it's not
yeah,
for-
yeah,
like,
I can-
like the
I can
point
agree with
guard,
that.
I don't think there. I think with point guards,
it's Magic.
You're
Magic's
in
the
you're in the
general
90. You're in the 95 percentile
Yep.
where people
Yeah.
just say
Shooting
Magic.
guard is
Magic
99.
straight away. Yeah, yeah.
Small forward is now LeBron's.
Yeah.
There's a few Larry Legends.
Isn't Duncan the small forward and LeBron's the 3?
Get
Oh,
out.
no,
Johnny,
backwards.
get
Then
out
a
of here.
power
Backwards,
forward,
back-
Tim
yeah, yeah.
Duncan.
I thought you were
Tim
drinking. I thought you were
Duncan.
drinking
Yeah.
Big Red, man.
Tim Duncan's
I
the
heard that
power
well.
forward, and then it's that center spot.
That's the biggest. That's the
It's
biggest
hard.
question mark. and
So
it's
let's
not
throw
for
out the
lack of
names.
talent.
Let's throw out the names first. We got Shaq Diesel.
Well, throw out your number 1.
No, let's
Give
get
them all
let's-
10,
just
all
in
10,
no
I got
pa-
you.
in
let's
no
just-
particular
let's just
order.
talk about
Go,
who
go.
we all agree is at least in the conversation, and then we'll give who we think's won, and we'll talk about
Yeah,
them.
Shaq.
We have Shaq
Diesel.
Diesel. We got Hakeem the Dream.
Well,
We got Wilt Chamberlain. We got Kareem
Kareem.
Abdul-Jabbar. Those are probably the consensus top 4.
Russell.
Yeah.
Bill Russell is in that conversation. So that's probably the
Olajuwon.
Hakeem was in there, the
Hakeem,
Dream.
We already
Um,
said that, Johnny.
Yeah. So those are the 5 guys
My speaker.
that depending on what criteria you want to use,
David Robinson.
you're not
prime.
crazy. I'm not putting him in that.
know,
He's
I'm
out.
not putting him in
He's
that.
out.
He's 6.
He is out.
He's 6.
That one season.
out of there.
So who? Let's
no back injury. Come on.
let's start. Let's just kind of go down that list first. Let's extend this a little bit. What are your thoughts on Shaq? Shaq. I think Pat's just outside.
Are
of
we
that.
going down
No,
the-
that's a good question. That's good. Anyone else that we think's in that conversation?
For me, man, I got Shaq after Kareem, and I mean, I
So
guess
you got
the easiest.
Kareem
I guess
one,
I guess the
Moses
easiest.
Malone.
I guess the easiest way to do this is just go top 5 across the table, and then we can talk about it. But I don't know. I'm saying
Let's JB,
What do you
before
think?
you
What do
get
you
there,
think? What do you
before you
think?
get there, what I want, and you had a really good point off this, is let's talk about why we rank players where they are. I don't think in
Are
this
we-
situation we're gonna say in a vacuum who wins, because that's not really fair.
no, we're
Let's
talking. I
say
guess we're
like
talking
with
about
with the people that they played against, their competition. Let's take we're gonna try and take as much as we can the holistic view of where we think the players are, how they compare to their
I like that.
peers.
I like that.
Let's talk about
Yeah,
that a little bit. Yes, Shaq is probably in a vacuum murdering all these guys, but let's take
Yeah.
what they did against their peers into effect.
Okay.
So then Wilt's the best ever.
N- tough.
It's not the
man.
only thing. We're
It's
just
not the
saying
only-
that
it's
we're,
one of the
Spears aren't
things.
as
It's
good.
one of the
including
things.
it.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, man, it's so tough. You don't want to disrespect anybody, but it's like when you're hooping in chucks and you're playing against guys that are 6 inches shorter and stuff, and you've got 1 or 2 quality matchups a year, it's just tough. But for me, it is almost impossible not to rank Kareem first. And I've tried. My favorite in the bunch is Shaq,
Right.
and my second favorite is probably Hakeem, just on style and how they play. But it's like, if you want to go off of relevant eras, statistics, championships, individual accolades, I would say Kareem is one for me, and then I gotta go Shaq second, for sure. And then after that, man, it's between Hakeem and Wilt, I suppose. But though to me, and we can start with that. Like, for me, Kareem is one, and it's hard to deny, just off of everything I said. And then with Shaq, it's like, for the period that he was in his prime, there is no person on earth, there's no person breathing, there's no person that's ever picked up a basketball
Except Duncan, who
No,
gave him the business.
no, come on, Johnny. Like, he's not. Nobody's checking Shaq one-on-one.
Shaq is still hurt. He's still hurt to this day about Duncan being better.
These are
He
two
just made a
Spurs.
comment.
These are two Spurs homers who
I'm
would
not-
also classify Tim Duncan as a power forward. But
true.
Shaq bullies anybody, and that's Magic Shaq. That's Laker Shaq. I'm just telling you.
Okay,
No man on earth guards him one-on-one, and also he was an elite defensive player for a really long
Okay,
time
so,
until he got old.
I'm there. All three
got up to
of your top
15.
guys.
That's the most dominant player in NBA history, even if it was just for a span.
Here's-
That's the most dominant.
and
So I have all three as top 10. I as all time players. Kareem for me ranks number 1 as well. If you watch film on that guy, like, his shot is just
Yeah.
it's like, the only thing I compare it to really is Dirk. Like, when Dirk gets that certain shot, it's just
Cream said that, by
it's
the way.
just
in
make
an
or
interview.
miss.
He
Yeah,
said that in interviews. That
mean,
Dirk's the other shot.
I started watching because he just intrigued me. Rebounder, just an impossible shot to guard, could pass, can do a little bit of
He wasn't
everything.
as good a rebounder. He started
But
out
just-
good, and then he went way downhill on his rebound.
Well, he played for like 20 years.
No, but I mean,
that's
early
yeah.
on, it was pretty early.
So
His rebounding
Kareem's
went
one
down.
for me, and the difference, Hakeem and Shaq are very close. My argument, the reason I'm going to put Hakeem's my 7 all-time, Shaq's 9, is Shaq's going to be the victim of the excellence he played with a little bit. Shaq played with both Kobe and D Wade in his prime,
That's fair.
and Hakeem's the one player to win championships in the MJ era. So you have to show a little bit of love.
You mean in the era that MJ was playing baseball?
Not 1 year. 1 year he was in the league.
And
And
playing.
Alright.
you've got it, and that we
Alright.
always, he's the one superstar that has a ring during that time. I'm going to show him, and the fact that Shaq couldn't get the ball in the last 2 minutes because of free throws. I mean,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
wasn't that guy at the end, and Hakeem was. And Hakeem, the way you talk about Shaq's dominance, I talk about Hakeem's footwork. It was perfect. His
Hakeem,
moves were just
to me, man,
flawless.
it's very close, and I admire, I appreciate that list as well, because with Hakeem, that's a guy that for 13 years, so out of I think a 17-year career, and the last 3 or 4 of those, he was just kind of coasting, doing 9, 10 points a game. For 13 years, this guy's averaging a double-double, and he's
Right.
also towards the top. Like, he's elite when it comes to being a shot blocker, and when it comes to be
top
when
3
it
shot blocker of all
yeah,
time.
when it comes
Top
to being
3.
a help side defender and stuff, and we talked about earlier, I think I don't know why his legacy's the one to kind of suffer a bit, whether it's ESPN's dumbass poll that they posted today, or not poll, their list that they posted today is
Right.
awful.
Not being top 10.
Yeah,
I
and it's
think
just like
that's asinine.
it's like,
Yeah.
man, for 13 years this guy is averaging a 20 and 10 plus double, and
25 and 14.
Yeah,
27.
and
He's got some
11.
Tim Duncan in him that his personality doesn't show.
I think what- well,
that's a
and
little
yeah,
bit of the. There's not a lot of
well, and the Rockets
character.
were not an elite team really, even on their first championship. Like, they kind of came out of nowhere. They were
Yeah.
kind of just floating around. They were not an
Seventh
elite
seed, I
team.
think.
Yeah. So they were, being the guy on an underdog team, you can ask a whole bunch of NBA players even now, like, that doesn't help you when it comes to all-star
Right.
selections and this and that. But
Yeah.
that's for me, those three, it's hard to go wrong with being top three.
Sean.
I got Hakeem at the top, man, and I was also disappointed in him not cracking top 10. He's the most skilled, man. I think Hakeem is he's top 10 in points and rebounds, right? And I think he's also top 15 in steals as well. But to me, he's the most skilled, and shortly after him, I have Kareem. I will say this: fifth on this list, because we listed those five, and I don't think that's up for debate. I think everybody will say those five are in the top five.
I agree.
But
with
if you wanted, for anybody that wants to slander Tim Duncan's name, if you wanted to throw Tim Duncan,
we will not be slandering in here.
He's a top power forward of all time, Sean.
No, but if you wanted, because if you want to bring up the fact that maybe he didn't play power forward his entire career, he still cracks his top five.
7-8 seasons.
He still cracks.
He cracks either top five.
sure.
If you're talking bigs, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. But my five, it goes Hakeem, Kareem, Wilt, Bill, and Shaq at the very end.
You put Bill Russell over Shaq, Sean.
I do,
Sean,
Let's hear about that.
Yeah.
Sean, you dumb son of a bitch.
Let's hear about that.
It's I
11
think a
rings.
lot of, like y'all said, like, is Shaq, if you're taking Shaq for a season, is he the most dominant? Without a doubt. No one up here is going to debate that, without a doubt. But let's also give credit to people for longevity. Okay, like, whose fault is it that Shaq wasn't dominant past a
Shaq's
few years?
fault.
It's
Shaq's
Shaq's fault.
fault.
Exactly. So let's hold him accountable to that.
I mean,
So, but with
define
what
dominant though. I mean,
Yeah, he was
even
a
with
bad
the
boy.
Heat. So
Define dominant?
we're not talking about Celtics and Suns Shaq.
Why
But
not?
I'm saying even so the guy comes into the league in, is that 93?
Why can't
93
we
draft?
hold
Man.
Shaq? Did Shaq not get paid in those years? Did
No,
he play
no,
for
no,
free
no, no,
or
no.
what?
Check it out. You're talking about a guy that plays inside and plays the most physical position in basketball, and even through the Heat days, like even when they won a ring with Wade,
He just was 20 minutes.
he was
I
averaging
have
averaging 20.
I have
and
a
he
question
demands
for
a double
Sean.
team.
I have a question
Yeah.
for Sean off of what you're saying. Who do you like more, MJ or LeBron?
Who do I like more?
Correct.
I like MJ more.
So,
That's
but
easy.
but didn't you watch him play for the Wizards?
It's
You
real-
like Wizards him? MJ only played for 12 years.
Dustin. Look, I'm gonna
Oh,
settle.
are you saying that you can
Dustin.
characterize 12 years of excellence and be
Dang.
willing to? It's okay to do that.
Dustin.
It's okay for a guy's 12-year prime to be good enough to. Yeah, I agree with you, Sean.
Dustin?
Good point.
I just can't
Good
rank.
point.
I can't. I'm
Just
Give him a
listen,
chance.
just
Give him a
real-
chance.
just
Give him a
real
chance.
quick,
I'm
my-
listening. I'm
my-
listening.
You put Bill
My
Russell over
brother-
Shaq.
hey,
You can
listen.
be wrong and have
My
the chance
brother
to
over
talk.
my brother over here that is also limited offensively. Right?
That's right.
I
That's
know
right. That's
know
right.
he appreciates. I've seen Dustin play defense. I've seen
Yeah,
him
you should
guard
like
his
Bill
own
Russell.
players. I've seen him guard his own collegiate players, man. There is no way that you can look at LeBron and say, "Hey, LeBron, you're better than Jordan because what you do on the other side of the ball, what you do on defense."
Who could guard
is-
more positions successfully?
It's not. But does he?
Yeah,
But does he?
yeah.
So why is he never got a defensive player of the year? If
Because
he's
they stopped
if
giving
he's
that to
that
guards
versatile,
many years ago.
nah,
When's the last time a guard got that?
Uh,
Honest question, Johnny. When's the last time a guard got that? Was it
Kawhi Leonard?
Ron Artest or Kawhi Leonard?
Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, it's the last time.
Oh, okay.
To me,
Was
the
LeBron
league-
playing when Kawhi Leonard
All
was
right,
playing?
all
Is that
right.
not
It's
fair game?
JB's
Okay,
turn
I'm
to
sorry.
defend his. You
I'm-
got beat
hey,
already.
How
Now
do I-
let
how
him.
do I turn
Now
this
let him
on?
have his
How do I
fair.
turn this on?
hey, I'm just saying, man. If a guy we haven't talked about as much, and I mean, to me, longevity wise and just stats wise, like Wilt's got to be over Russell, but nobody.
No,
I mean,
but he beat him.
Russell's
He beat
such
him
a
so
no,
much.
Russell's such a
man.
Russell's such a dude. Like, he's such a great figurehead for the league. He's got 11 titles and everything, but it's like you're talking about a guy that averaged. We talked about this. He averaged
50 and 25 one season.
15 and 25, and it's like that's great, but you're playing against guys a foot shorter than you wearing Chucks.
Yeah,
Like you're hooping against guys playing in Chucks, and it's just like
Bill
not,
Russell was the only guy really. And Bill Russell even said we kind of let him have his, and we would win.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, and that, like I said, you don't want to take away from greatness or anything like that, but it's like, man, if you stack him up against any of the other guys we're talking about, significantly less skilled, actually smaller, but just not even to me, not even near on the level of if you even put him. We don't want to say, hey, 60s Bill Russell, come play in today's league. But if you put Bill Russell even in the 80s, I don't think he's
I don't know what he is.
I don't think he's not a dominant force like Kareem gives him buckets is what I'm saying.
I think the counter to that is it's so hard to rate leadership, and like he is widely known as one of the greatest leaders, that he would just do whatever it took. I'm
Sure,
not.
He coached one of the championships. He was coach player.
Yeah,
one of the
he is the intangibles, and Bill Russell, like the Bill Russell rules, like I think lasted like I think NBA's like buy his book and like would try and like so I don't think those are unfair points. I think
But
the
does
thing
it
that
make him top 5 though?
I think when you add the fact that he's the best player on 11 championships,
It's just
like that's something that's unfathomable.
it's just tough, man.
And he beat Wilt, and Wilt had a better team 4 or 5
Couple
of
of
those
those for
years.
Hey,
sure.
it's fucking tough, man.
For
I'm just saying there is no shame in somebody saying, "Hey, you're a top 10 center to ever play in this league, in a league that's been around for 60 years. Like there's no shame in that. But to say that the guy is top 5, just by default and just by championships, it's like, well, does that make Robert Ory?
Yeah.
If you take Bill Russell's
think
stats,
comparing-
no. If you take Bill Russell's stats, and it's like obviously they're more impressive than Robert Ory's, but if you take away the 11 championships, if you even cut that in half, is he even in the discussion?
his numbers are less than like Chris Webber's. I think.
No, I'm saying,
I
do
mean,
you?
It's
I'm saying
fair,
if
but
you
11,
cut
if you cut his in half, then he's about at that where Jordan's at. I mean, that's a pretty. I mean,
ridiculous.
it's just tough, man.
It's
just,
an interesting. We talked about this. I mean, at that point, there was for like I think like 6 of those championships, there were 6 teams in the league.
I'm just.
So it's apples to oranges.
It's not all about
I think
one on
that-
one. I'm just saying if you put him one on one against anybody else on our list, they're beating him 11-0.
Well, except that he did it against Wilt. So one of the guys that's right there.
What
with
did he
these
average
guys,
against Wilt?
He just did what it took to beat him, though. Would he do that to
He just
Shaq?
had a better team.
I mean,
He had a better coach.
Sean, are you? Sean's winning the ball. Oh, your mic's off.
so,
Yeah.
Oh.
There it is.
So do
Okay.
we have a consensus on at least a top 3? I
I
feel like
don't-
that's
I
a
don't
step
think
for
we-
humanity.
I think Kareem,
no, I think-
Hakeem.
We
and-
don't have to
no,
agree.
We
Just
don't.
the 3 bodies.
The
Hakeem-
3 bodies, because he has Shaq at 5.
I do.
God damn it,
Hakeem,
Sean.
Kareem,
So
well,
I
yeah,
think
Shaq needs to
do
get
we
his
all
ass
have
in shape.
Kareem at 1?
my-
Who did you have
Dude,
at 1?
I-
Hakeem.
Hakeem.
Oh, shit.
So
let me
Hakeem
do-
and
let me
Kareem
do
are
mine
in
real
our
quick,
3.
and maybe it'll
Hakeem and-
Okay,
clarify.
I didn't know Johnny had.
So I have kind of with Sean. I have Hakeem for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
The era he was playing probably had the most
Yeah.
set of dominant centers. So
Yeah.
he was playing
Yeah.
against the Ewings, the Robinsons, the Shaqs. He beat Shaq. Like he played against the peers of the elite centers of all time, basically, except for Kareem. All right. And my thing with him is 2 times he had quadruple doubles. It's only happened, I think, 4 times in NBA history. And you, out of all these guys, all right, each one of them, you could say this is a weakness. This is what we can attack.
Okay.
Hakeem basically had no weakness. Could shoot free throws.
Who's
He-
your 2?
And he could, well, this is the other thing, though. When you said about Shaq, even in his prime, you go put him in a pick and roll and get him away from the rim. Not even close to what
Even
the dream would
even
be.
Magic Shaq.
I mean, maybe that first 5 years, but he's not the dream, though, about getting
Nah.
back, blocking a shot, moving. He could dribble the ball up the court. Like I just see the
To
dream
me,
as
to me, if we're
no
talking,
weakness.
yeah, if
No
we're
weakness.
talking modern centers and you exclude Kareem, I mean, because I'm 31, so the 80s is
yeah.
not modern. But
Kareem's
if
number
you,
2
if
for
you,
me.
yeah, to me,
Kareem's
yeah,
2 for you. Okay.
Kareem's 2.
So then who do
I
you
got-
have next?
Y'all aren't gonna like it. I got Wilt as 3, but
Okay,
he reminds
okay.
me of Shaq. But I
Scored
got him as
100 points
3.
in a game.
Where
I
was Wilt
know.
for you?
It's 3. We got you got Hakeem, Kareem, Wilt.
Yeah.
That's the same here.
So what we'd have is
Disrespect
Wilt.
for Shaq from Spurs
We'd have
fans.
Wilt. We'd have
Fuck
so
off.
our top 3 would be it average out to Hakeem being 1, even though JB and I
we got
did
what?
not. put that because Hakeem's 1 or 2.
No one says that.
I'm just telling you if the average.
I'm sorry. I guess this podcast says that. But
Kareem's
no one else says that.
Kareem, even though he's JB and I's 1,
Yeah.
he's now
and
the
rest of
2.
the world's one.
And then our tie for 3rd would be between Wilt and Shaq.
That's all right. I'm
I'm okay with that.
I
I
can
would
live with
switch
that.
Kareem and Hakeem. I don't think actually these are terrible. I think
they're not.
I
They're
think-
not
to argue
they're not.
against
They're
any
not.
of them,
They're not
really.
awful.
They're all
in my
I
right,
mean,
man.
was Sean guessing? Probably. I mean, but other than that, I mean,
I still like Peak. If Robinson doesn't have a back injury,
Peak's
but
interesting
if-
because
if-
Peak
if
you can't
Robinson-
fuck with Shaq.
No back injury, Robinson. His numbers were insane, and his athleticism. He was good against any.
It's
of
cold.
These
I was
guys.
cold
But-
dude for about 3 years.
Yeah,
there.
But I'm just saying, if you just go Peak, I think Shaq. Like,
If you go peak, then it's all Shaq.
I mean, when he's
can't shoot free throws.
Johnny,
we got some
Johnny,
problems.
even
Their-
if Johnny, if
their
he
average
makes
difference
one,
was
it's
like
a point
plus
per
8.
possession.
they were like,
Yeah.
and they were winning games by an average of 16.
yeah.
So I mean, it's
tough.
one of those where it's like
Yeah.
they didn't need him to make clutch shots because they
Johnny,
were.
I'm actually
killing
looking
people.
at Wilt Chamberlain's career free throw percentage right now. He couldn't shoot.
Oh, he couldn't shoot free
Yeah.
throws.
No. Hey, this is
51.
this
Yeah.
is the thing though. If you
Couldn't
even make
shoot.
half, it's a point per possession,
and you're still
and they
analytical.
have
fine.
to change the game for you.
I've made that argument.
no,
and people don't understand that.
it's
like
an
shooting
over-
50%.
We're
it's an overshadow. It's
Yeah.
an overemphasized stat, but it's just
we're
like,
running out of time.
Yeah.
Just like one podcast. Malcolm Gladwell has a revisionist history. He has Wilt Chamberlain on in season 1 talking about like how Rick Barry almost convinced him to shoot underhanded, and he was like gotten really good at it,
Yeah.
but he just didn't
I've
think
heard
it'd be
that.
cool. So pretty interesting
Rick
stuff.
Barry, the all-time free throw leader of all time, shooting granny style. One of the weirdest stats.
He offered that to Shaq, by the way. but
Yeah, he tried to
Yeah,
do it with Shaq.
they,
Shaq
they
said,
talked
"Fuck
about
that."
that a little bit. That neither
Shaq
one of them
said,
thought it
"Fuck
was
that.
cool
I'm
enough.
Shazam."
Yeah. So we are about to run out of time. Just a couple of notes for next week. We'll be going over the finish of The Last Dance. I'm sad to see The Last Dance be coming to an end of our
It's
lives.
such a journey, man.
There will be a Bachelor. It's not a rewatch because Sean has accurately debunked my claim of that phrase, but we will figure out a word for that. And then, without further ado, we're going to let Sean send us home.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Nice
yeah.
little closing of
Oh.
your
I'm just really, really appreciative that the one button hung on.
We didn't mention
did.
Klay Thompson
There it
today.
is.
No Clay Thompson
No-
until we
no-
mentioned
got
Klay
him in.
Thompson.
No Clay Thompson.
I almost
signed
put him at the
Got
top
him
of our
in.
center.
quick little closure, guys. It takes no money to support us. If you just want to hit that like, just tickle that little like button right there. Tell your friends about us. Just give us a little shout. We appreciate all your support, guys.
All right, guys. See you next week. Back at a regular time, Wednesday at 8.
Oh man.